Hey everybody, Jennifer Dixon here with Thrive Yoga and Wellness. Today I thought I would talk to you a little bit about backbending. Sometimes backbending gets a bit of a bad rep, especially if you have some low back issues or in general have a hurt back. Remember, I'm not a doctor. I am not an expert in anything other than my own personal body, so I can tell you what I have done to help keep my back safe. I have a herniated disc in my L5, that's the lower back, and it happened while I was doing a little bit more high intensity exercises, and it gets exacerbated when these guys aren't strong or these guys aren't engaged. Why is that? That is because your belly muscles, your transverse abdominal specifically, that's kind of like your body's girdle, your body's natural girdle. That's responsible for protecting your back. When you have your transverse abdominals engaged, that can take up to 40% of the pressure off of your low back, which is what's always under pressure, right? This guy has to hold us upright, these back vertebrae right here. So what we're going to talk about today is how we can continue to backbend, or how we can maybe start to backbend even if we maybe didn't like it in the past. And so I've got a nice shirt on that folds up somewhat so you guys can see the back. So what I want you guys to be able to see is I am hypermobile. So here I am, I'm closer to 40 than I'd like to think about. And before kids, I could do these back bends where I could touch my ankles and all that kind of stuff. Post-childbirth times too, I'm not quite back to there. But here's the thing, I was doing that in a yoga class with my late teacher, and she brought me out of it. I was all proud of myself. I was like, hey, look, teach, I can touch my heels. And she brought me out of it, and she said, okay, can you do that with your Uddiyana Bandha? That's your belly button to spine, basically. And I was like, I am. And she's like, no, Jennifer, you're not. Bless Donna. And so she made me come back out, tilt to my tailbone, engage the belly, and try to come into my back bend that way. And guess what? I couldn't do it anymore, because when your belly is not engaged, these guys can bend more, puts a whole bunch more pressure in this region of your back, the low back. And guess what? We want to focus on building strength and mobility in the upper back. The upper back is never going to bend so much. Your rib cage is there, your sternum's there to protect your vital organs, right? But what does need to open up is here along the shoulders and these muscles. And back bends are great ways to do it. But what happens is they don't want to move, and this lumbar region can move, so the lumbar region ends up doing more of the work, which equals pain or injury. So let's try to figure out a way that we can do this without injuring ourselves. So I'm going to demonstrate it with a Urdhva Dhanurasana, upward facing wheel pose, bow pose rather, or it's normally called wheel in a yoga class. And so hopefully with my shirt rolled up like this in the back, you're going to be able to see what I'm talking about. Remember, with wheel, you've got your heels, hips width distance apart. You're just slightly touching them with your fingertips to make sure that you're close enough. If you have to be kind of like this, way spread out in order to get into your wheel, let's back out and come into a bridge pose, which is more like channeling your inner Jane Fonda, your butt workout, lifting up like this. Remember, never do that while looking over to the side, even though I just did. And you want to leave your chin up when you're a bridge pose. So it's more like this in a bridge pose. Eventually, hands coming together, shimmying closer together, and then your chest comes up to your chin. And so the way that you know that you're ready to try a back bend is if you can get your chest up pretty high. If you're still down here pretty low, maybe just keep working on lifting up and getting the chest and the hips down up a little bit higher. But for today, we're going to come into our wheel pose, fingertips touching those heels, hands come up, fingertips facing the shoulders. When you first start, your shoulders and your elbows are going to come out wide. That's kind of normal. As you build strength and mobility here in this upper back region, shoulder lats region, you're going to be able to leave those elbows pointing straight up. It's a much more intense press up for the triceps. Okay, so let me show you. Hopefully you guys can see my back. Here I am really crunching in the low back. You see how everything is right here, all bent up, very, very crunchy, and I'm not going to lie, this is not comfortable. It hurts my low back. So let's come back and let's think about how we can do this safely. So now I've lifted this up. You guys can see nothing is engaged here. Full disclosure. Now when I go to engage the belly, I have to bring that belly button to spine and then lengthen through the tailbone. What just happened? My low back, which was off the mat when everything was disengaged, when I lengthened through the tailbone and brought the belly button to spine, the back lost its natural curve. I've got a little bit of an accentuated curve in my back. It's called a sway back. That's not the technical term for it, but we're going to go with it. Okay, so belly button to spine, lengthening through the tailbone. When I set up my my wheel like this, my back is safe because these transverse abdominal muscles are nice and engaged. Let me make sure that this guy stays up so you guys can see it. Okay, so set up, lengthening through the tailbone, low belly to spine, fingertips towards the shoulders. I'm going to try to lift up while maintaining that length in my tailbone. Can you see how I'm sort of lengthening those hips up with my tailbone down? That's the same action, whereas this is how I lifted before. I want to lift like this. So there's no back bend yet on the happening in the low back. So here is nothing engaged. You see how it's all lumbar. Here, it's the belly's engaged, so the bend is not happening there in the lumbar. So when you back bend, the lumbar is going to bend regardless, but we want to protect it and make the bend come less from here and more from the upper back. And guess what? When you lengthen through your tailbone and lift here, you're going to be able to feel these muscles engaged. You might even be able to feel some of your abs, your transverse abdominals engaged, depending on what's going on. So here I am lengthening through my tailbone. Belly is nice and in, and you guys can see it. My back, there's no curve to the back. Here I am hanging out, loosey-goosey, nothing engaged, big sway in my back. Tailbone down, belly's in. I'm not going to lie, this is working my butt. My butt has to work. Those glute muscles have to work to keep it down. All right, on an inhale, I'm going to push up, keeping that tailbone lengthened down, keeping that belly button to spine, and hopefully you can see that the curve is not quite as bad in the low back. All right, so here it is, disengaged, much more crunchy in the low back, right? Here it is, re-engaged. You see that I can't lengthen through the quads quite as much. I'm going to bring my hands in because I feel like I can. Lengthening down, quads are engaged, glutes are engaged, belly is in, and I'm in a safe back bend now. And I can keep working those hands back. And just breathe. You don't want to ever disengage those glutes. You don't want to ever disengage your abs while you're in these back bends, because the second you do, the low back takes all that pressure, and we don't want to do that. We don't want to hurt the low back. So, key takeaways here for your back bending practice. When you are working on a back bend, you have to have the belly engaged. Those transverse abdominals have to be engaged. Your tailbone has to be lengthening down. And for those of you who they think this is sitting up straight, because I'm a little bit of a sway back, you see there's a curve. That's not engaged, right? You have to be so engaged that your back starts out without that low back curve. Lengthen through the tailbone, low belly in. And then, sorry, Ruger's in the way. Then you press up with that low belly and transverse abdominal engagement. So tailbone lengthening down, transverse abdominals engaged. That's your Uddiyana Bandha for yoga people. And then you can explore deeper back bends safely without pressuring your low back too much. I hope you had fun learning about back bends with me today. If you have any questions, don't hesitate. Drop down some comments below. We are located in Chattanooga, Tennessee at Thrive Yoga and Wellness. And if you're ever in the area, stop by. We'd love to have you. And until the next time, y'all have fun. Namaste.